Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, we're excited to welcome Manon Billette. Manon has over 27 years experience as a speech therapist and is certified in multiple other alternative modalities. And one of these is the brain integration technique, also known as BIT from McCrossinology. Another term used for this modality is LEAP, the Learning Enhancement Acupressure Program. So we are quite excited to learn more about this modality. Thank you so much, Manon, for joining us today.
My pleasure, Christine. Happy to be with you again.
So how about we begin with, learning a little bit more about what brain integration technique is all about?
Yes, sure. So let's go right into the subject. It is a technique that was developed 35 years ago in Australia by Susan McCrossin and Charles Krebs. I'm very grateful that I had the privilege to learn this wonderful technique from both of them. The purpose of this technique is to improve brain function and to help with learning disabilities. It is based on 3 fields of study. The first one is brain physiology. This is the science behind how the brain functions. The second is Chinese medicine, because we're going to be using acupressure points in this work. And finally, the last discipline involved is kinesiology, because we also get to work with muscles and body movement. So let's talk quickly about what it means to have an integrated brain. If we compare the brain to a computer, we could say that an integrated brain is a high-performance computer. When the brain is well organized and synchronized, it is efficient, fast, and it doesn't waste any energy. At the opposite, when a brain is not well integrated, it will function like a computer that's not always efficient, slow, or that requires too much memory to do a task. When this happens, this is usually because there is a stress on some of the structures or pathways of the brain. It could be, for example, a physical stress, an emotional stress, or a chemical stress. Basically, the stress in the brain will prevent the person from having access to their full potential. So the person will struggle to accomplish certain tasks, or they may just give up. When you have a computer that's not working, it's very, very easy to go out and just get another one. Unfortunately, this is not an option when it comes to your brain. So this is when brain integration can be very beneficial. Brain integration helps to rewire the brain by applying a specific protocol. This works a little bit like computer programming. When you're programming a computer, you have your keyboard and then you have your keyboard keys. And what you do is that you do different combinations of keyboard keys, like Alt Shift Delete, let's say, and this actually will activate your computer. So this is a little bit the same with brain integration. Your body is actually the keyboard, and the keyboard keys are acupressure points. And what we do is we do combinations of these acupressure points, which are called brain formats. So each brain format will activate a specific structure of the brain. Once we've activated the structure, we can then check if there's stress in that structure by using muscle feedback. If there is stress, we use a specific correction technique to go and release it. So basically what we do is we put in a format, we check a structure, and then we go and we release the stress in that structure. Then we use another brain format, we check another structure, and we release the stress. So we repeat this procedure for each structure. The number of hours needed to complete this basic protocol will vary depending on the severity of the difficulties. It can take around 8 to 12 hours when the person has slight difficulties. It can actually go up to 20 hours with someone that would have like severe difficulties. And once all the structures have been checked, then the basic protocol is completed. And there's actually a second part to the work, which we won't necessarily do with everyone. It depends on each person, each child's abilities. In that second part, we will go and challenge the brain with specific learning tasks and release more stress if needed. So all this work will have a very, very positive impact on the person's capacity to learn. Research has shown that it can change the blood flow and the brain activity in the brain. Practitioners obviously don't have equipment to measure brain activity in their office, but we do conduct an initial assessment at the first session in order to be able to measure the progress afterwards.
Wow, that's absolutely fascinating work. I'm so happy that you were able to describe that to us, because I think it'll benefit so many to learn more about this work. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about how it can help children with special needs, in the sense maybe you can give us some examples of, certain conditions and how the work perhaps helped them surpass some of those limitations?
It can help them by reinforcing their foundation for learning, either by improving their memory, their concentration, or by making it easier for them to process auditory and visual information. This is substantial, and for some children it can translate into improvements in daily living tasks. And for others, it will help them to develop their language and cognitive skills. We know that these skills are necessary to accomplish different school tasks like reading and writing and problem solving. Whatever their challenges are, the goal is to help them to access their full potential. So whatever the potential is, of course, and we need to keep in mind that it's actually different for each child. So unblocking this potential is one of the really fascinating things that brain integration can do. And there is no secret. This is possible by addressing the unconscious components that are involved in learning. This is one of the main differences between this work and other interventions like tutoring, resource teaching, even speech-language pathology. These interventions that I just mentioned are very important, and when you combine them to brain integration, then you have a much more integrated approach with the child with special needs. And let me explain a little bit more this difference by using an analogy. Let's say you're at a relay race and you're the coach of a team. You're at the finishing line. You only get to see the last runner of the team coming in. So the last runner represents the conscious components of learning. The other three runners that you didn't see, they represent the unconscious components. So the coach always wants to better his team performance. He will definitely be able to help the last runner because he saw his performance, but the other three runners, he didn't see them. So if he ignores the last three runners and only works at improving the last one that he saw, this is like addressing only conscious components of learning. It may help, but it may not be good enough if he's not the only problem. So to have an efficient team, he needs to train all four runners. And to do so, he needs to have a tool. like a camera, let's say, to have access to the 3 other runners' performance that he didn't see. So brain integration could be compared actually to that camera, because it gives us access to the unconscious components of learning, the one that we didn't see or that we can't see. So in order to help someone to learn, you can really up your chances by addressing both components, basically, so conscious and unconscious. The unconscious components include everything that has to do with survival reactions and emotions. These cannot be neglected with anyone, and even less with children with challenges. So let's say a child struggles with reading. Most of the time, the way that we will address this problem is by saying, okay, we'll make them read more. So we go on and we make them read and we make them read and we make them read. It's actually very, very good practice. So practicing can actually help. But if there's an underlying problem like auditory or visual processing issue, or if there's an emotional blockage, you may not see as good improvement as you want to. This is why releasing all the unconscious components will be very beneficial before or while doing tutoring with a child. I've had tutors and other professionals tell me that their interventions became much more efficient with a child after they applied after brain integration was applied. So all the feedback from other professionals, teachers, and parents are great, and they really can help us measure the impact of this wonderful work. So now, Christine, I want to finish answering this question by telling you about some of the positive impacts that this work can have on children with special needs. So I thought that instead of listing them out of context, that it may be more interesting to just share with you some feedback that I've had from parents. I've chosen 3 children that I've followed. So I'm going to go on and read some of the feedback that these parents have given me. And I just want to also make sure, to tell you that I have permission of these parents to actually read this feedback to you today. So the first one is Emily. I saw Emily 2 years ago. She was 6 years old, and she presents a delay in her development. We actually, the feedback I'm going to give you was actually given to me 3 hours after completing only 3 hours of protocol. So we were not finished. So I will go on and just read it to you. So Emily keeps on saying that she's a big girl and she can do things by herself. She has been much more autonomous in the past week. She started making her bed without anyone asking her. Also, at bath time, she surprised me by washing and drying herself. She can now pour water in a glass without anyone's help. She is also starting to show more interest in the alphabet and tries to reproduce letters. Finally, I also noticed that she is much calmer at home and when we go out. So very positive changes for Emily that have impacted mostly daily tasks, as we can see. We notice definitely more autonomy with her, and there is like less academic impact, but we see that she's actually starting to show interest in letters, which is very positive for her. So this is the feedback for Emily. And we'll go on now to the second boy, who is Daniel. I saw Daniel actually 10 years ago, so it's been a little while. Daniel was struggling at school back then, and his mother was describing him as a not happy child. He was in grade 3 when we applied the protocol, so here's the feedback. So Daniel is now much calmer. He is happier and more positive. The teacher noticed that he can focus better and has more self-confidence. He is getting better results in his multiplication table quizzes. Daniel's reading went from a level 13 to 27 in 6 months. The teacher called me to let me know that in her 30 years teaching experience, she had never witnessed this much progress over such a short period of time. He can also skate better, and his coordination at hockey and football has improved. So we see that for Daniel, the work had positive changes in his attitude and also at an academic level. And even if it wasn't a goal, we see that there's been also changes that have influenced his sports abilities. So that's really interesting. And last but not least is Michael. Michael is 9 years old. He's on the spectrum. The protocol is not completed yet. Actually, Michael is actually a great example of combined therapies. He's doing a lot of amazing therapies. So, I mean, some of these progress could be related to the protocol, but also to the combination of all the work with other therapies. So, the feedback that I got was 2 days ago from his mother. So, there he goes. I was telling my husband today how much Michael has improved since you started working with him. He is much more relaxed. He is reading with much less difficulty in French. He is now riding his bike without training wheels, preparing his pizza for lunch, and making his bed. I don't know what it is with the bed making, but seriously, if you're having problems with your child making his bed, don't consider the protocol if this is the only difficulty your child has. So he is also more engaged, and we've been noticing so much progress in a short period of time. So, like Emily, we see that Michael is much calmer, and he's much more autonomous in his daily tasks. There's been a big impact also on his reading and also his balance. And the balance is a big thing, because the mother had been trying to teach him to ride his bike for a long time. So this is like a big step for Michael to be able to ride his bike now. And for also another amazing thing that we notice is that the fact that he's more engaged, which is a very interesting observation, considering also that this child is on the spectrum, and we know that sometimes these children have a hard time engaging. So it's very interesting to see all these observations. So what we noticed from this is that we set goals at first, and the work will have an influence on various things that sometimes we didn't think it would at first, and it's not necessarily what we wanted that will come up first. So it is very important when doing this protocol to keep our eyes open, because there could be changes in coming from anywhere. So this interview concentrated mostly on children, but I want to mention that I also do this work with adults, and we also have amazing observations with adults. Actually, adults' observations are quite interesting, because adults are usually more conscious of their difficulties. Like a child, he's just like growing up every day, so he's constantly changing. But when you do the protocol on an adult, and that he's been like struggling for years, sometimes even 20 years, 30 years with difficulties, and you see like the changes, it's really amazing.
I think I really love the fact that there's freedom around it, because when the child receives a treatment, whatever comes of it, it's really whatever blockages were present, and it allows that freedom for the child to explore areas of their own interest or even improve in areas of their own interest. So I really love that, because there's a bit of this leadership coming from the child as well, which is fantastic. Yeah. And thank you for mentioning that this was also good for adults. Yeah. I meant, could this benefit just about anyone?
This can actually benefit anyone, this work. I mean, we're all like compensated human beings. I mean, we all have our little struggles. There's different areas in our life where we have difficulties. For some people, it's going to be with sports. With some other people, it could be with music. With other people, it will be with cooking. So, I mean, definitely, I mean, this brain integration work can work with anyone. I mean, you just have to be willing to put the time into completing the protocol. That's the only thing that may stop people sometimes from doing it. For me personally, I mean, when I did get my brain integrated, we actually had to do this through the course. So my struggling at that point, that was about 10 years ago, I was going to switch from skiing to snowboarding, and I was struggling. I mean, I went on the hill, on the bunny hill, and I mean, I couldn't get that turn. I mean, it was really hard for me. And I said to myself, okay, you know, once this protocol is done, I'll see if it makes a difference. I mean, I saw a lot of benefits from the protocol, and actually, I think one of the big one was actually with snowboarding, because as soon as I got back on the snowboard after I finished the protocol, it was like I had snowboard all my life almost. I mean, the fear was gone. I felt like I didn't have to put an effort into doing my turns. So it was really a great feeling. So you can see it can help with a lot of things. Athletes could actually also benefit from this work. I mean, that feeling of not struggling is just a wonderful feeling. So another way it can help also, I didn't mention it before, but it can help with people that have concussions. If they're suffering from symptoms from concussion, it's actually a good protocol also to do, because there's often stress in the brain that we can go and release. I actually have seen a few people with concussions. I have a lady right now that I'm following that is actually, she's had like a concussion like 2 years ago. She's saying that she's noticed like a lot of benefits, like a lot of changes since we started the protocol.
It's really great because it's not just the academia. There's also progress, you know, in physical activity. It really is across the board. So it's really fascinating work. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today. I will absolutely include your contact information below this in case anybody has any additional questions for you or maybe interested in more information. Thank you so much. And I also, I think there were 2 books that you felt might be interesting for listeners in case they wanted to learn more.
Yes, Christine, there are actually 2 great books, 2 great reference books. They're slightly different. I would say that Susan's book has more case studies in it. So it explains what the brain integration is, and she gives us a lot of examples of some of her patients and what were the results of the work. So if you're into case studies, this is actually probably the book that you will enjoy the most. Where Charles' books, Dr. Krebs' book, is more oriented towards what is the story behind the brain integration, how it was developed, and what are like the based, like all the based theory behind the work. So depending on what you're looking for, I mean, you can choose. Before we go, Christine, there was one more thing that I wanted to talk about. Actually, it's a little message that I wanted to give the parents. Brain integration can be compared to taking care of a garden. You plant seeds and you water them and you give them attention. Then you wait, and if weather permits, you will actually, and also if there's enough sunlight, obviously, you know that you will eventually have plants, and then after that, it will give you vegetables. So this is actually the same with brain integration with someone. Nature has to follow its course. This is very important, and you may not see anything at first. I want to say that because when we start working on the protocol and we're working on all these components, those unconscious components we were talking about, it may seem to parents like we're doing nothing, because nothing is really happening. Like, we're not asking the child to collaborate with this part of the work. So parents sometimes think we're not doing anything, but it's a little bit like watering the garden, right? We're just planting seeds, watering the garden to have things come up. So as we go on with the protocol, then they will start noticing the changes, because we will be doing a few tasks, and they will see through the tasks the changes. So what I have to say is, we need to have faith and we need to have patience when we do this. And I mean, this is also for me, I mean, it's been working a lot on my faith and patience. And I mean, each time I see someone, the faith has to be there again. I mean, because each person is different. And because that's it, we like we say, we don't see the results right away. We need to have to respect the integration time. It's very hard sometimes for the parents because they want to have changes right away. And it's normal, because usually when they come to see you, it's because, in some cases, because their child is struggling at school. So when they come, they want you to put out the fires. And then you tell them, and then they don't see anything, and you tell them to wait. It's not easy to wait when your child is struggling. But we need to have the patience, definitely. And the second thing I want to tell the parents, I'm going to go back to my garden analogy. I mean, when you plant zucchini seeds, you actually don't expect that, a few months later, you're going to harvest lettuce. So what I want to say is to the parents is keep realistic goals. I mean, it's important in this work, when you decide like to involve your child actually in this work, to keep and have realistic goals. This is the last thing I want to say. It is very important. So thank you, Christine, for having me talk about brain integration today. I mean, and thank you for all this wonderful work that you do with the parents, like giving them all this information. I mean, it's so precious to have this, and I'm really happy that I had the opportunity today to discuss with you brain integration, and with everybody that will be watching this video. And if ever you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll be really, really happy to answer you. Thank you.
It's so greatly appreciated. Thank you for that extra bit. I'm sure parents will greatly appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you.